first with Chris Canty. It's all coming up and going down in Philly, Canty. While all eyes are on the quarterback position.
It's going down. It don't have to come up and go down. It's going down in Philly.
Jenna, you just got to take the L on this phrase and never speak it again.
What is the Mendoza line in batting? What is it?
200.
Oh, Jenna.
Jenna on the... It's
150.
We want to know, let me start over. All eyes are on the quarterback position and whether Carson Wentz will be ready for week 1. Head coach Doug Peterson thinks that his Super Bowl winning team, the one many believe to be one of the best and deepest all-around teams, actually got better this offseason. Here's Coach Doug Peterson.
I think on paper, you look at the depth of where at each position, the depth that we have, it's definitely the deepest roster in my 3 years here. It's really exciting because, the hardest thing is you're going to have to cut good players. And you're going to have to cut players that are probably going to end up on rosters somewhere else.
Chris, is it possible that the Eagles are actually better this season than that stacked team they had, that deep team at almost every position they had last year?
Yeah, it's possible, and I think they actually are better. I don't think Doug Peterson is blowing smoke. This isn't coach speak. They are a better football team, personnel-wise, than the team that won the Super Bowl a year ago. When you look at the two deep, especially on the offensive and defensive lines, I think that's where the strength of this football team is. CC, you always talk about different teams matching up versus other personnel rosters, but you say the Eagles match up well against anybody because they have solid play on the offensive and defensive line. I was looking at the two deep on the offensive line. Those guys have 74 starts between them. Right. That's the two deep on the offensive line. Right. So you can survive. You survived Jason Vitae. You survived Jason Peters' injury last year because you had Vitae being able to step in. He's got experience now. But guess what? Jason Peters is an upgrade from the left tackle that they had in the Super Bowl. Michael Bennett is an upgrade from Vinny Curry. Haloti Ngata came over this offseason in free agency. You look at the secondary. They've got a lot of experienced guys back there. So I feel really good about this Eagles team, and their depth is what's going to allow them to sustain the success throughout this regular season.
So here's the thing. I think they are better. But as you guys all know, in the NFL, because the sample size is just 16 games, you can be better and have the record be worse. Like, the Eagles being better does not necessarily... You win the Super Bowl, you get better, well, then I guess they're winning the next Super Bowl. That's not how this league works. Like, does anyone at the table think they win the Super Bowl last year without home field advantage? No. So, how about this, Canty? Do they get home field advantage if in, week 3? How'd they beat the Giants? The woeful Giants.
A long field goal.
61-yard field goal at the gun. We then saw them a 1 week later, I think, squeeze out and win against the Chargers. Like, they're close games last year. We saw them against Carolina. Cam had it down 5 at midfield with 2 minutes left, and they get a stop. Now, they get credit for all of those wins. But the point that I'm making is that you can be better, and if 13-3 due to a couple bad bounces, a 61-yard field goal not going in, turns into 12-4 or 11-5, then it's a totally different situation. They were amazing. They lost their MVP quarterback, and they won the damn Super Bowl, and we think they're better, but it's not the Warriors. Man, they won the championship. They got better. Give them the championship again. Football, because the sample sizes are so small and injuries play such a big part, you can't quite do that same math. But I agree. They're a deeper team, and they were the deepest team in football last year.
Is there something to a Super Bowl hangover, Chris? Is there something to, hey, we were chasing. Oh, now we're the ones that are being chased. Does the mindset affect play at all?
I think it's worth conversating about. I think different organizations, depending on what was their pursuit of the Super Bowl, and I believe in doing that, you can have, because they put everything into the Eagles. They didn't put everything into last year's Super Bowl. You know what they did? They put everything into building this roster. Mm-hmm. They put everything into supporting the head coach, all right? They support the quarterback. That's why they had a good backup. Now, once they got into the chase, then it was like, hey, man, we're here. Let's go ahead and win this.
Get Jay.
And then now once they saw that they won it and realized how many key players they could retain because of where they were with the salary cap and because their quarterback was on his first contract, now it's like, we can win a few of these. We looked at the beast, faced it, knocked it down in New England. So why wouldn't their goal be to win multiple Super Bowls when you got players coming back in Jordan Hicks, their middle linebacker. You talk about those games that, yeah, but they didn't have these players. What about Darren Sproles? You add him.
He's gone for the whole year.
Okay, now he's going to be coming back. So I know this roster is better. I don't think they're going to suffer a Super Bowl hangover. Now they had some hangovers because they did some partying. but I believe that the ownership, it took them so long to get there. I believe that the head coach, he just getting his first taste. The quarterback, he ain't gonna hang over because he didn't even get. He was at the party, but he was in the back trying to dance. So
he was the designated driver.
So I just believe that all those things lead to the Philadelphia Eagles being as hungry as any team that we've seen in pursuit of their second Super Bowl.
And see, that's the difference to me with this Philadelphia Eagles team. I think that you have so many individuals that are part of this organization that are hungry. Don't forget about Howie Roseman. Remember when they brought in Chip Kelly, he was demoted. He wasn't in charge of personnel anymore. So he's now validated
he can't
as a decision maker. He wants to continue to win championships. Jason Peters, he didn't win a championship last year. He wasn't on the field for the Super Bowl. Michael Bennett coming over from the Seattle Seahawks. He wants to win again. Like he's a champion.
That's a good point.
Yeah, Haloti Ngata, he wants to win again. He's a champion.
Yeah.
So all of these guys want to have success at the highest level, and they know it's possible because a GM put together a really good team, and a head coach has a model, a formula for how this team is going to win games on the field.
Well, and the hangover, we see it in sports. Like, championship hangovers are real. Pat Riley would call it the disease of war.
It happened to us. It happened to the New York Giants in 2012. But the difference between us and the Philadelphia Eagles, they have a lot more depth than the Giants had.
And the difference is, going into last year, who was the most popular player on the Eagles from a leadership reputation standpoint? Jason Peters. You saw it when he got injured. The entire team, they treated his injury the way you treat guys that suffer spinal cord injuries, where like the whole team comes over with support. It was a bad injury, it was a knee injury, but they weren't worried about his life. But it was because of who it was. He has a ring, but as you mentioned, like he doesn't have he's a champion more in name than in actuality. And their quarterback, the best player on their team, he has the opposite of a hangover. He's got a chip on his shoulder because they're so deep. And what Nick Foles did, things can turn quick in sports. And I know C's saying he's a stud, and I agree with him. But all of a sudden, if they don't, Carson Wentz is going to convince himself this year, if we don't win the Super Bowl, they're going to blame me. They did it with Nick Foles. We got everybody back. And so this is one team that is almost immune to the hangover because they did something we never see in sports. They won a title with their backup quarterback, with their backup left tackle. You mentioned their backup middle linebacker.
So just from the folks that I've spoken to in Philadelphia right now, the thinking is this team is going to go as Carson Wentz comes back and goes. But what do you think is going to be the biggest factor to get this Eagles team back to the Super Bowl?
Man, I believe their defense can be dominant. I'm concerned about their secondary. All right, I'm concerned about their offensive coordinator and Mike Groh taking over. It's a big opportunity for him. It's a lot to man when you have a quarterback and the type of personnel. So those are the things that are question mark. Their secondary, how good will they be? I know the linebackers are good. Their front line is one of the best in football. Mike Groh, I believe him to be a competent coordinator. How does he handle the bright lights of being the coordinator there? So those are the things that if going into the season that we have to look for as far as if there's a weak spot, if there's a chance to potentially fall back, how does he handle that new responsibility and that defensive secondary? Are they going to be as good as they were last year? In big spots, they're not a great secondary. They don't have great talent, but they played well together.
You agree?
I agree with it. The secondary is going to be a product of how much pressure they can generate up front. But the fact that they have a 7 or 8 man rotation gives me confidence that that's going to be an opportunistic group because those guys hunting the opposing quarterbacks, that's going to create opportunities for turnovers on the back end.
If we're nitpicking as well, I'd monitor the injury to Alshon Jeffrey. Yeah, obviously they added Mike Wallace. We think he's an upgrade over Torrey Smith, but he's an older player. They lost the backup tight end, Trent Burton.
Brent Selleck is gone now, but they got Dallas Goedert.
Absolutely. So, like, if we're nitpicking, but that is how many teams you talk about across the league that would give their left arms for the Eagles wide receiving core? And I'm saying that's something to watch for. So that's a small one to just keep an eye on.
All right, Chris, we'll see you a little bit later on in the show. Coming up on the other side, Dwight